Mr. President.
Senator from Texas is recognized.
Mr. President, I rise today to talk about the need to address entitlement reform as part of the impending fiscal cliff. Now, Mr. President, I'm not just going to talk about the macro issue. I'm going to talk about specifics on a way that we can at least do one entitlement reform, Social Security, with specifics and make a difference for the long-term future of Social Security for the millions of Americans that depend on it and have earned it, but also it is so important that it be part of the discussion today. So much of our short-term consequences and needs for the fiscal cliff have dominated the discussion. Well, that's okay. We are 1 month away, after all, from dire circumstances. However, we can't avoid talking about the long term because that's what we've been doing that has caused us to reach a fiscal cliff. We've got to look at entitlements. According to Medicare trustees, for instance, Medicare paid $35 billion more to beneficiaries this year than it took in last year in payroll taxes. And its trust funds will be depleted 12 years from now if we don't act to save Medicare in a responsible way. The other issue that is not being talked about very much at all is Social Security. In 2010 and 2011, Social Security expenditures, the benefits paid to retirees and the disabled, exceeded payroll tax revenue for the first time since 1983. So as a practical matter, we know that the federal government is borrowing to pay the Social Security needs of today. Last year, 2011, the Social Security trustees reported that with benefits paid continuing to exceed payroll, that the trust funds would be depleted in 2036, after which the program would have a net unfunded obligation through the end of Social Security's 75-year valuation window, and that net unfunded obligation would be $6.5 trillion. After reading the trustees' report last year, I drafted the Defend and Save Social Security Act to preserve and strengthen Social Security for 75 years. The longer we delay, the longer and more painful the fix will be. Now, I keep hearing members of Congress and even the President saying, Social Security is off the table. We're not going to talk about it when we're talking about the fiscal cliff. Now, that is an astonishing statement for the President and members of Congress to say, we're not going to talk about 54% of the spending in this country. It's off the table because that's what entitlement spending is. 54% of our spending in this country on an annual basis. Of that, let's just take out Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which is 44% of the total spending of our country. According to the Social Security trustees, 1 year later from the 2011 report, the reserves now, because we waited a year to do anything about it, the Social Security Trust Fund reserves will now be depleted in 2033, 3 years earlier than was estimated just 1 year ago. And the unfunded obligation for the 75-year window has now grown to $8.6 trillion. So you see what happens with 1 year of delay to the security of Social Security and really the capability to keep it going. Because in 33 years, if we don't do something, there will be severe cuts or severe increases in taxes that will be automatic without any act of Congress. They will be automatic. Now, you talk about a fiscal cliff now. Think about the cliff that members of Congress are going to face because we didn't do our job in addressing this issue when the solutions were there in a relatively clear glide path that would be relatively unnoticed in most households. This is what will happen. There would be a 25% automatic cut to the retirement payments and the disability payments now going out in Social Security. That would be an average of $308 per month. Now, the Social Security trustees put it straight out there. They said they have two ideas to shore up Social Security right now. One is to immediately and permanently increase the combined payroll tax on employees and employers from 12.4% to 15%. So that would be a 1/5 increase in the payroll taxes that are in the norm being paid today. The other alternative they suggested is to cut core benefits right now. $200 per month, they said, would do it. $200 per month in cuts to Social Security checks. Now, Mr. President, I don't think anyone in America believes that that is feasible or even desirable, either of those options. So, what can we do? We can act now. We can reform Social Security without cutting core benefits and without increasing taxes on people who are working today. I introduced a new version of my Defend and Save Social Security bill after the 2012 report came out from the trustees. And it covers the 75 years. It covers the shortfall of $8.6 trillion, which was estimated, and it doesn't raise taxes on the people working today. Here's what it does. It increases the age of retirement very gradually. Now, when I introduced my bill just last year, it wouldn't have affected anyone who was 57 years old or older. But in just that 1 year, because the deficits in Social Security payments going out have occurred, today it's 59 years of age. No one 59 years of age today would be affected. For everyone else, it would be a very slow increase of 3 months per year, for instance. The normal retirement age would reach 67, just from 66, by 2019, 68 by 2023, 69 by 2027, and 70 by 2031. The early retirement age would also be increased to 63 by 2019 and 64 by 2023. And second point, the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, would go up slightly. It would start when inflation is 1% or more. Now, inflation has averaged about 2.5%, so there would be a COLA, but it would be about $12 less if inflation is kicking in below 1%. So for a $12 per month COLA, not core benefit cut at all, just the COLA increase would be about $12 less per month if inflation didn't go up. Then you would have a secure system. It would be a system that would last 75 years. we would not have the $8.6 trillion added to our deficit, and no core benefits would be cut. Now that's, you know, Mr. President, I'd like to ask for 2 more minutes.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, let me just say, that's not the only thing that we could do. We could change the cost of living to the chained index. That would be okay. It wouldn't get us as much of a deficit reduction over 75 years, a chained CPI, but it would get us at least into a solvent position if we increase the age rate. And I just want to give you a note of history. When President Reagan was facing the same issue, and the Senate was the Senate was one party dominated and the House the other, he got House Speaker Tip O'Neill together with him, and they formed a commission which started the increase in age which we have today, because people live longer and they work longer. We can do the same thing that President Reagan and Tip O'Neill did, because it is the same configuration, by coming together and acknowledging that people live longer and they work longer. And you can make accommodations for people who are in particularly physically strenuous jobs, which I think all of us understand maybe are not able to work as long. You can do those things and fix this issue, Mr. President, in a responsible way. Let's do it now. 1 more year is going to make it that much worse. It was $2 trillion in just 1 year added to the deficit. We can do this, Mr. President, and I thank the Senator from Arizona for giving me the extra 2 minutes to just say, let's do it now. In fact, the Senator from Arizona has been a co-sponsor of our bill to fix Social Security. We cannot address the fiscal cliff without talking about entitlements, which are 54% of our spending. Anybody can do the math on that. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
Senator from Arizona.